Hi, this is Victor Devon, and you're listening to WEBurlesque, the podcast. Special thanks to Dolores, Rob, Joseph, and Michelle for their continued support on the WEBurlesque Patreon. If you want to be just like them, you can go to patreon.com/WeBurlesque and give us some support. Thank you very, very much, and enjoy the show. This is WeBurlesque. I am your host, Victor Devon. It is May 19th, 2018, and we are in Central New Jersey, and my guest today is Vonka.
Hello.
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 It's one of the things about podcasts, like, obviously, for those listening who know, we didn't, like, just bump into each other and hit record. Like, there's been about 5 to 10 minutes of pre-talk. So it's always like, hello. Oh, hi. How are you? I'm still getting used to that.
Yeah. A bizarre human interaction.
We are in Vonka's red room, which is a bedroom.
My red room of pain.
And there are 2 swords on the wall. There's a cat portrait. There are many doors.
Oh, if you open that door on the opposite side, there's my whips and my all kinds of torture implements hanging on the other side.
I did think it looked a little conservative at first. It is a lovely room.
No, it has been this red painted room with black furniture since far before 50 Shades. And only long after 50 Shades did someone point out, oh, Christian Grey, it's your red room of pain. And I went, damn it.
Damn it.
It is.
I didn't even think about that. Oh, we can talk about how many ways that the film and book series has impacted or had an impact. I hate using impact as a verb. Had an impact.
I use impact as a verb. I do a lot of impacting all the time.
So we are in bed. We are in a very comfortable. This is a nice little comfortable bed.
I'm glad you're cozy.
I'm in bed with Vonka. It's a very 1990 Madonna moment, which I appreciate. The in bed with Madonna. We should play Truth or Dare. If I didn't know that you would beat the hell out of me, and I don't just mean that literally.
Good puns. All good puns.
Thank you.
Actually, there's an amazing Truth or Dare card game that I found a few years back at a New York Comic-Con. It's at its early release, and I've played it with a few Kinksters, and what's really nice is that the cards say oddly specific things.
Okay.
Like, never have I ever been arrested, or things that are not necessarily a sex thing.
Sure.
It's not the basics of had a threesome, had anal. Ugh.
Well, I remember when I was so much younger than today, when we played Truth or Dare, and we were like, what, 6th grade, 7th grade? And like, what is the worst that we had gotten? I mean, there are people who have done a lot at 6th or 7th grade. Understandable.
What age is 6th or 7th grade?
That's like 12, 13.
Okay. All right.
Like, just under? Okay. Yeah. That's actually even young. Yeah, because high school is usually like 13. Okay. So, I mean, the idea that you were like, oh, so have you, and it's usually just like, especially, I would say, in my surroundings of straight boys as a child who are, kind of the worst people on earth.
Yeah.
At that age, especially.
I mean, most men in general can be terrible.
Rough. It's pretty rough.
At that age.
And that age, it's all about being, like, topping, I don't mean again, see, all the punning, topping one another in terms of how experienced they are or how dirty they are. Like, I remember I had, like, a camp experience where all these guys who were like, I don't know, again, like 11, 12, 13, talking about all these girls that they had sex with or all these experiences. And like, I don't know. It's possible, but it seemed like a lot of talk and a lot of just like, territorial pissing.
I think I went through a phase like that myself when I first started being very more comfortably out.
Okay.
And
out as
in
as a queer person or as a
both as everything, and more sexually active.
Okay.
I should say, I think all, especially femmes and femme women, when little girls get crushes on other little girls, they assume that, oh, well, she couldn't possibly like me, and oh, well, how do I even know if she's queer or if she would be interested in me, or etc., etc. And then you end up with a lot of really cute femmes shyly not looking at each other back and forth. And there was a point that I magically hit where I suddenly realized that if I confidently approached anyone who I found attractive and just sort of presented myself as, oh, hi, my name is Vonka. I find you very attractive. I would love to get to know you better. I have no idea if you're attracted to women, let alone attracted to me, but if you're at all interested, I'll be over there. And then the key is you go away. So you give them space. You give them all the information they need, and you can be really blunt about it. You can be as blunt as you want. You can say, oh, hi, I would really love to put things in your orifices. I don't know if that at all interests you, but if it does, let's talk about that further. I'll be over there. And you give the same space. And I found that the worst reaction was that they were flattered but not interested. And a good percentage of the time they would come back and be interested later. And then I went, oh, I can just hit on all the women. I can hit on whoever I want. I can be this like lesbian machismo person. And I think there was a lot of misogyny rooted in that of, okay, I'm fucking women, so now I'm going to be this man who sleeps with as many women as possible.
It doesn't sound like entitlement, though, which is a lot of like machismo is like rooted in, is because it's sort of like that hey baby, fuck you whore sort of mentality.
Yeah, that's true. So it wasn't that. But once I started to...
You're giving them permission.
Yeah. I mean, they were definitely being treated like human beings, giving enthusiastic consent.
You weren't yelling this at a car.
Yes, no. I was definitely not. But once I started to...
This is a great line. Like, you need to imagine, like, just at your sound level. You're not yelling. You're just at your sound level. You're just slowly driving past them, saying this to them. Like, I'll be over there. Bye. Over at the Quick Check.
If you want to fuck, I'll be at the Quick Check. It's a terrible pickup line.
It is.
I'm very glad I didn't say that. But I probably said similar things. Who knows?
How long ago was this?
This was... I want to say I was 18...
Okay.
19, so a little bit older than the age you're talking about, but
right.
But I was saying
it's all there.
Yeah, once I hit the age where I was getting the type of sex that I wanted to have, I would brag about it in probably a similar way as this young teenage boy trying to show off.
Just like compare notes. Sort of.
Like, I'm doing this, and I put my whole hand in her, and like.
I mean, to a level, it's also like you. It's an enthusiastic. Like I don't mean I'd love to hear your take on it, but it doesn't sound like you experience a great deal of shame. Like, and that's not to say you don't know when things are right or when things are wrong or boundaries, because I know that's very key to a proper BDSM relationship and lifestyle. But it doesn't seem like you have that you worry about it.
Yeah,
is that true?
I think I am very privileged in that, despite my upbringing of being homeschooled on Bible stories and a choir girl and all of this religious backstory.
It all sort of makes sense.
I carried none of that with me except for rebellion. I didn't internalize any of the shame about my sexuality or my desired lifestyle. So that's very fortunate. I think the only way that it's not really shame, but when I would do a scene with someone, I would be worrying the whole time. Right, the whole time I'm like, are they okay? Are they okay? Are they okay? Did I do this wrong? Oh no, was that noise bad? Was that bad pain? What was that? And I would worry the whole time, and I thought that made me, in quotations, bad dominant. But I've realized since that actually
because
makes
you weren't confident about it. You mean?
I've realized that to a degree that makes you a better dominant. You should be worried about the things, and now I'm less worried because I'm more experienced and I can see the fine-tuned differences between when I'm doing something right and when I might have made a mistake, or read people's reactions a bit better than I perhaps used to. But I am less worried about that now, but being worried is still a consistent, important part of consensually hurting someone.
Right. So as as a pro dom, as a fetish model, as a burlesque performer, what else is there? What else do you have
I do.
on your resume?
I do. Well, I mean, I guess fetish performer kind of goes along with all of that. Where
Sort of like a
sometimes
demonstrator, or
it's a little both. So sometimes I'll be doing a performance that is, I think of it as burlesque, and then when you stand away from it and look at it objectively, it's really not burlesque. It's really just a fetishy performance.
it's like a fetish go-go.
Like it's something like that. Or I've done performances where me and Lydia Vengeance were doing performances at Do Supper Club semi-consistently for a few weekends in a row, where we're wearing cat suits and gas masks, and the only thing that comes off is the cat suits. And I had her on a harness. No, we were wearing leashes that were attached to each other, so collars with one leash between us, and it was mostly just crowd work in that bizarre getup, being sexy and writhing around each other, and then eventually we take off our cat suits and pour candle wax everywhere. Is that burlesque?
I don't know. It's.
Was it strip? I mean, was the strip really a tease, or was it just a? It's definitely.
It's theater.
It's definitely
all just
theater.
theater.
It's definitely a performance.
Right.
But I don't think that it's really necessarily burlesque.
Right. I mean, if you do that
okay
like
with
in a loft space in like Astoria, and you replace some of those elements, like that, most people would just say that's straight up performance art. I think the question sort of sometimes becomes, is the audience supposed to get off on it? Because I think for a lot of art, we're not allowed to get off on it, or that's projected upon us. That performer is going through their own catharsis, that performer is going through their own shit, and we're meant to be like, good for them, not I identify with that, or I'm responding to that. Which, I mean, burlesque is sort of complicated with that, because we're sort of supposed to find them sexy and alluring, but we're also supposed to not objectify them while we're objectifying them.
I do think that sometimes with burlesque, the goal is to elicit a certain response. Like when I'm performing, I'm usually not solely doing it for myself. I am doing it to try to
Elicit
evoke an emotion at the very least. Even if I'm not trying to evoke direct desire, I'm trying to stir up something in them.
I mean, and that's sort of, I guess, it's all really demo, isn't it? It's all like, here's an example of what I'm doing, and you're there for the ride, because your audience, I mean, when you were with Lydia, was how involved was the audience meant to be? It was supposed to be in spite of them, basically, right?
I mean, we did a lot of audience interaction. We handed the candles to them.
Okay.
Actually, Ice-T and Coco were there one of the nights, and Coco poured a lot of candle wax on us and was a boss at it. Apparently, I found out if you hand a stranger a candle and you get on all fours, they almost always pour the candle wax an inch above directly into your butthole. That's where they go for it. They don't pour it on your ass cheek. They don't pour it on your back. It's just they go straight for your butthole every time within a few inches. And the higher up, the higher away you pour the wax, the less hot and the less burning damage you may cause.
Right, because it has the time to hit the air.
It has, exactly. The air sort of cools it a little bit as it's falling. So within an inch every time. But Coco was all about it. She knew exactly what she was doing. It was very impressive.
I mean, I'm not positive, but I think she may also have experience professionally.
I believe so. Not to stereotype just based on one's appearance. I
believe she has said.
Just seeing her at work.
Yeah, it's almost a shame that I mean Coco. I know her 15 minutes on television has sort of succumbed to most reality TV that has surpassed her. But it's sort of interesting that a lot of times we'll view like someone like Amber Rose as like a forefront sex positive person, but someone like Coco, who is a little bit more Jessica Rabbit and a little bit more femme,
Yeah.
and a little bit more.
More femme, less androgynous.
Yeah, I
Or
wonder.
less queer reading.
I wonder if we sort of dumb her down on our own behalf, if because she's not as serious, quote unquote, as
Yeah.
as Amber or someone
Yeah.
like that. But you never know.
I don't know.
Have you ever done club stripping, like exotic dancing?
I mostly have not. I have done fetishy performances and burlesque as not exactly the same entity at separate occasions in strip clubs.
At like
as
a gentleman's club.
Yes, as a guest performer. I have not been a like full-time
Right.
regular like club girl, which I still call myself a stripper.
Sure.
And I do that under the umbrella term of stripper because I think if you take off your clothes when you perform, you are a stripper. And at the same time, I don't mean to evoke that I don't share the same stigma that club strippers do because what we do is still stripping, but it is more glorified. People say, oh, well, that's art, that's different, that's fabulous, that's choreographed. And it's true. That's not wrong. It is fabulous and choreographed, and it is a more artistic expression in a fundamental way. That doesn't mean that club stripping can't be, but it usually isn't.
Right.
And
at least in our pop culture response, it almost is never the strippers almost never given agency.
Yeah.
Or given the storyline that they're choosing it, or that they're happy, or that they're doing it on their own free will.
yeah.
Burlesque, I think, is given sort of like, oh no, but that's them picking, that's them choosing and embracing it. Like,
And half the time they glorify it as a hobby,
yes,
which
Yes.
because it doesn't fucking pay very well. If
Yeah.
we make less than strippers in strip clubs
Yeah.
anyway, and yet we
but
can't.
perhaps that's why we give them more. That's why we like it more, because as soon as we say a woman is making their own money,
That's true.
I think there's absolutely that's connected too, because you can say that, oh well, then that's real art. But as soon as a woman, particularly, I mean, I know in the gay culture it's going to be slightly different with go-go boys or with like and having only been to a few full nude male strip clubs, and they were all in Canada when I went to Montreal.
Really?
Yeah.
I've never been.
Yeah, Montreal, you can do that, and you can. There also are like the back rooms for like private dances and stuff like that.
Yeah, so it's
like,
the same. It's the same concept.
quote unquote rooms. They're
Yeah.
they're more like cubbies.
Yeah.
I want to say there's this place I went to called Adonis. I want to say, which sounds like an episode of CSI, but for
I mean, my whole life sounds like an episode of CSI.
at least the first 20 minutes, like the safe 20 minutes of CSI, where you're like, you know what it is you're the witness, or you're the stripper that the investigators go to learn about it. You're not the
I would like to think that, but most
While
people
you're sweeping down a bar.
Most people probably think that my life is like the horrible flashback of CSI showing you what happened.
So you're the first 5 minutes and then the flashbacks.
How this terrible fetish went wrong and killed whoever.
Would you? I mean, we're close enough in age where we would have seen a lot, like obviously Law and Order and all of those. I mean, we just made references to CSI. Did you grow up seeing sex workers and sex adjacent work? Even like Pretty Woman. Like, did you ever look at that and say, I could do that, but I could do that in a way that's safer, or I could, or did you have a view of that changed?
Not really. I'd say my experience with sex work, it wasn't really something that I ever thought like, oh, I could do that. I think there was some point where I was budding in sexuality and I realized that I was not necessarily that I was kinky, but just that I was interested in all these weird things, and eventually I found out that the word for that was kinky. And I think there may have been some young age at 11 or something where I went, someday I'm going to be a stripper, just to be extreme and just to go like, I want to do this bizarre thing. But
I can imagine
didn't,
you doing that.
I didn't really think of it as a a practical career or what the ramifications socially are at all until
Right.
I joined the kink community, and I really started pro-doming before anything else, because I at the time had a partner who was pro-doming. And so I just sort of accidentally fell into it, even though I was already kinky in my personal life. And that didn't work out so well. I didn't really like it the way it was being done at the time. So I stopped pro-doming then, but I fell into the kink community, and then I absolutely loved it. Because it wasn't the weird anonymous married men paying me for this service. Then it was just me being myself and doing stuff with people who I wanted to do stuff with, and finding a whole community of that was just so wonderful and enriching. And that's when I met a ton more sex workers.
I mean, I guess one thing, it's sort of interesting. I mean, I've always said that I would never want to work in the food industry because I like food and I don't want it ruined for me. So I have to wonder if there's an interesting parallel between really enjoying something and then getting into work under that field, where then suddenly it's not about your pleasure per se, or it's not about your intake. It's about providing a service, or it's about, I don't know, you sort of see the warts and all of something that you're really into. So as someone who was kinky first, and then got into the professional side of things, was there ever a time where you were like, this isn't fun?
Yes. I think so essentially when I'm doing dom work, I am a professional fetish delivery system. I exist to create a desired experience for someone else at mostly their behest and their whims. Or sometimes they don't know what they want, and I have to figure it out and give them something that I think they'll be happy with, which is a challenge. So there's some psych related to there. Hi, I'm using my degree. So there's some psychology to it, and I think that there are some events where I call it pro-dom party clowning.
Okay.
Where I am essentially the resident dom, off in like some corner dungeon for the evening, and it's mostly straight couples, or sometimes here and there a single person or a throuple or just friends that come together, but it's mostly straight couples, and they come in and they want an experience. And they form a line. So we started calling it like 7 minutes in heaven to try to give them the impression that, yes, the line has to keep moving along. Yes, you're waiting in line, but this can't go on forever. Yeah. And I have to very quickly size them up, figure out what they want, and give them a scene in under 10 minutes, and then send them on their way and politely go, next! So it's sort of like a party clown at a birthday party going like, what balloon animal do you want, Timmy?
But Timmy's not talking.
Yeah.
So how do you, and I mean, I've spoke to Essence Revealed, who has a career in club stripping as well as burlesque and all of that, and she recently wrote a self-help book about called Hustle, which is about what she learned as a stripper. And how you can apply that to everyday life.
Yeah, that's valuable as fuck.
And one of the things that I asked her, as someone, again, who learned about stripping in a really shitty way, because I'm a child, I was born in 83, so all of the 90s, not positive influences of sex work. So like something like Showgirls, or something like I said, how important is it to, if you have a couple, to get the woman on your side? And she's like, paramount. Like if the worst thing you can do is, and I'm paraphrasing,
ostracize the woman,
or like not like check in with her first, almost, to like make sure that everyone's on the
board.
Same page,
that she's not just being dragged to the strip club by her husband,
who's then deciding that this is what they're into.
You have to get her excited about it so that they continue to enjoy it.
It's a
or they actually enjoy it rather than not.
It's a generalization, but he will probably be more into just the thrill of being there. And as someone who has never been a sex worker in that sense, I've only ever been an entertainer. But as someone who has been in sex work spaces, I've been in dungeons, I've been in sex clubs, I've been in situations like that, both as an entertainer and as a voyeur, for lack of a better word, as a patron, as just a watcher.
Yeah.
This is years ago. But as someone who sort of sees, like, it is fascinating to watch the different personalities that come into play. But there's a heightened, like, it's a high already just to be invited or to feel accepted.
It is a really adrenaline pumping, endorphin fulfilling environment, especially when you're not very accustomed to it, because that can wear away.
It's a novelty.
That
it
can
really
wear
is.
away, but it is a novelty. And I think what you were asking me before about, do I ever feel like something I enjoy becomes something I don't enjoy? And I think sometimes those nights where I'm beating people all night long to the point that my arms are literally sore, because I'm giving an experience to each couple for 7-minute time periods or 10-minute slots. But I have to be fresh every time a new couple walks in the door and do it all over again, which in some ways it's really great, because I meet a lot of people who are really lovely. I do have a lot of really good experiences, and I do love it. I really do. But after a whole night of it, it's also a lot of acting.
Oh, yeah. It's like an immersive play where you're doing the same scene over and over again.
It's very immersive play, and it takes a lot of energy. And by the end of those nights, I am worn the fuck out. And as much as I love pretty strictly topping in my personal life, by the end of that, I don't want to hit anybody. I want somebody to, like, I just want to lay there and, like,
you go to town,
go down on me or give me a massage and leave me alone. That's all I want. I don't want to hit anybody for another day or so.
Yeah, I mean, and that seems like there are singers who never sing off stage. There are dancers who never dance off stage. Like, it's sort of like, this is again a weird analogy, but I've been watching a lot of Hulu. Like, I Love Lucy. Like, Lucy gets mad at Ricky for not wanting to go dancing with her after, like, on his one day off, and he's like, I literally work at a bandstand.
I go dancing every day. Wow, I forgot I Love Lucy. There's so much adult context to things that I've never thought about. Recently re-listened to Spice Girls and found out that all of their songs are about sex.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I loved Spice Girls. I know all the words, but
Which
I just
is
didn't
funny.
know what they meant.
And to be perfectly, like, it's not subtle.
No.
It's not subtle.
It wasn't subtle at all.
To Become One and Naked are both on the title on their first album. Yeah. No, I just listened to a podcast with Baby Spice, so it's funny that you mentioned
really?
them. Yeah.
I actually, the last BDSM event that I was hosting had a 90s throwback theme. So I went as Posh Spice, and a bunch of my friends went as the other Spices.
Posh is definitely the pro-dom of that group.
Right?
I mean, they all... Honestly...
it's the look.
It's sort of like
It's the resting bitch face look.
It's sort of like the Moulin Rouge effect, where you go into a brothel, or you go into a sex club, or you go into a place like... and everyone is either meant to be completely uniform, like One Eye Jacks, or everyone is supposed to have, like... And I'm... the one all in white, or I'm the Lolita one, or I'm the big girl, or I'm the one in the fetish gear. Like, it's sort of like the expectation. Baby, the Spice Girls are that. They took every archetype.
We were trying, I guess, because we were trying to play to the theme, and we weren't really considering that we were doing it for a kink event. We were just trying to be as readable as the Spice Girls as possible, and now I really want to do a cosplay group as, like, dominatrix Spice Girls.
Sporty is the Butch.
Yeah.
Baby is the Lolita. Absolutely. Posh is definitely like the hard femme. Like the hard femme.
Yeah.
Ginger's was the wild card.
I like to combine my hard femme and my high femme and called myself a hired femme. Makes me sound like a hired gun.
What is so to help me out too, again, as a more or less guest in the kink world, give me some language terminology. A femme is someone who obviously...
I don't think femme is a kink word. It's more a queer word.
But in terms of context.
Context. Well, femme just comes from the word feminine, and it's really rooted in lesbian culture as femme as opposed to masc or butch. So you're femme or you're butch or you're masc or whatever, or some people are androgynous, and there are many examples online defining high femme from hard femme from low femme and all of the different forms of femme.
When a lot of times,
it's really about the presentation of queer people. Okay. So it's not really about, and I know some people say, oh, but this is rooted in lesbian culture. This is only a word for lesbians, and I strongly disagree. I think it's a queer culture thing now, and
because it's just the same thing as calling a boy a sissy, like or associating femininity with a specific version of gay man too.
Is it?
I would say you have femboys and you have mask for mask. Like mask for mask is sort of like a joke now.
Oh yeah.
But that's rooted in hookup culture.
Yeah. Well, I actually am an organizer of several Femme for Femme things, where there's a Femme for Femme play party that we've named after the Black Mirror episode San Junipero. And I help run little Femme for Femme mixers at a few other events. Okay. Where like little meet and greet cruising events, because it's like I was saying earlier, it can be really hard when you are a femme queer person to find other femme queer people. Because if let's say I go to a lesbian bar or just a normally gay space bar, as opposed to a more kink themed or a more gender queer type of space, people get very binary despite their queerness. They get very
you expect the bull dyke with the lipstick lesbian.
Yeah, it's bizarre. And if I go there, I don't read as queer even in queer spaces because I'm too high femme. So I seem straight unless I'm directly making out with another woman's or someone's face. Right. I've had butch people come on to me aggressively, and when I turn them down just because I'm not interested in them personally, they say that I'm not queer, and why am I taking up their space?
Do you think it's like an American thing?
I think it's a toxic masculinity thing.
That's sort of the same thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. It's like my truck is big and my whatever is big and my dick is big because this is America. And
but see, I would assume that your dick was big anyway.
It is. I mean I have a variety of sizes to choose from.
Fair.
I usually present.
That's accommodation.
I usually present my bottom with options.
So tell me the difference between, before we get into that, hard femme.
Hard femme. So think, what's an example? Furiosa.
Okay.
So you might think butch.
Yeah.
But not necessarily. Like it could be something like the energy she has, I think is kind of hard femme. Hard femme is... Okay. You're putting me on the spot here. High femme is like burlesque performer, you know,
Right.
not just lipstick lesbian,
Almost drag.
but almost drag, or all the makeup. Whereas I think low femme is more like sundresses and natural makeup,
nice girl.
And then I think hard femme is more like business executive lady.
Yeah.
Or
like Devil Wears Prada. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think executive when I think hard femme. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is like there's like an austere coldness.
Yeah,
and
so that's why what made me think of Furiosa. I could see why she seems more butch because of the whole diesel
or
punk
androgyne,
thing.
really. But yeah,
or androgyne, but the energy she exudes still has femininity to it. I mean, there's a variety in people. There are as many different types of femme and queer as there are humans who can identify that way if they so choose to. Or I think I saw a YouTube video by Pop Culture Detective about Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, about the very positive masculinity of Newt Scamander.
I'm unfamiliar. Forgive me.
Okay. If you ever decide to see the film, he's not feminine. Okay. He is masculine, but in this.
Is this the Eddie Redmayne character? Mm-hmm. Is this the Eddie Redmayne character, or is this the?
I don't remember the actor's name, but
the lead
character.
The lead. Oh yeah, Eddie Redmayne.
So he never solves problems with violence. He solves them with empathy and compassion, and has the way he cares for these animals is very paternal. He does have. He's not really an authority figure, but he is in his expertise on a subject.
Sort of like a soft boy situation.
Yeah, but it's still masculinity.
It
and
is.
Some people would default and start calling that feminine, that being a nurturer is feminine. But is it?
Well, I mean,
does it have to be?
It's one of my a dear favorite film of mine, which I also know that it has problematics in its language. Kinky Boots. The lead character Lola talks to one of the factory workers who is presented very masculine, sort of very like flannel and jeans. And it's like, so why do you like guys? Like, why? And Lolo is basically the Chiwetel Ejiofor character. Says like, well, let's consider what women usually find attractive in men is usually say things like sensitivity and understanding and things like that. Like, but you look at those and you take those out of what women are looking for in men, and those are usually feminine traits. And I'm like, that's true. We usually do culturally associate like softness and even not even softness. Tranquility is not soft.
Just basic human decency sometimes.
Yeah. Like sensitivity. Like really like my I mean, obviously we live in a culture that is not, where empathy is not at the forefront.
Yeah.
And that drives me crazy. That drives me really crazy. Because I, frankly, like, it's like, just be fucking nice to people. Like, why you gotta be such a douchebag? And I understand that I can be a douchebag with the best of them.
Yeah.
But when I do it, it's funny. No. No, but I mean, like, but I try to pick my battles. I try to pick my battles, and the whole concept of punching up, I get. Like, I'm trying. I fail when I do, but I try. Just the wanting to be the difficulty in life and the complications that all of that comes with. Why do you feel that there are, and I know this is a big question, but why do you feel that there are people who getting the shit beaten out of them is therapeutic and calming and comfortable?
I've had that explanation with my father a lot, because my father knows everything that I do, basically really everything, and we've had conversations where he goes back and forth a little bit, where he's really understanding and he gets it and he's cool one minute, and then the next minute he's like, but you're all sick freaks, and I have to explain him all over again. So I've come up with a few good analogies. Yes, it's I mean, he's not wrong, but I've come up with a few good analogies to help explain why people like pain, and why that's not necessarily a sign that they're broken or damaged or have some traumatic past. That sometimes you want to put yourself through a physical ordeal to come out the other side feeling accomplished about it. And I give the example of someone who runs marathons. That's something that you train for, you put a lot of prep into it, you wear certain things that are most accommodating for it. There's a whole culture around it, and when you do finally run that marathon you've been preparing for, everyone cheers you on, and whether or not you win anything just from having run the marathon, a lot of people who run piss and shit themselves because their body isn't supposed to go through that, or they're running for such a long period of time. It does actually damage you. It is not healthy to run to those extreme degrees. And yet no one tells them, you're a sick freak. Like, who touched you when you were a child? Like, what's wrong with you? People just say, oh my God, congratulations, wow.
You're so strong.
You're so strong. Or, oh, I could never imagine myself doing that, but that's so incredible that you did it.
Yeah. And you can associate that with cross-country biking or mountain climbing or anything athletic.
Usually. Any athletic thing taken to an extreme degree is hurting your body. Ballet absolutely is hurting your body, but people look at it and go, oh my God, that's beautiful.
The artistry.
That's breathtaking. That's...
people fuck up their vocal cords learning how to sing and do all of these things.
There's a lot of things that we do that technically are causing that pain or even permanent damage.
Our bodies aren't prepared for.
Exactly.
Not necessarily meant for, but they aren't prepared for.
They aren't prepared for it. And so sometimes people do something like hook suspensions or just a really extreme scene with blood or something like that. I've seen someone get waterboarded in their own blood. And you ask, why the fuck would somebody do that? I mean, personally, I just think, oh my God, that's so hot. But I'm a twisted
I'm not
individual
judging.
at this
I'm not
point.
judging.
I'm a twisted person at this point. My kinks are like at a 10 now.
No, the look on my face wasn't meant to judge you. That was more of a, oh my.
I had some feelings. But you wonder why someone would do that, and that's why, so that they can, and there are endorphins that kick in. There's adrenaline. There are many endorphins. I did a hook suspension.
Serotonin is a great thing.
It's a great high. I did a hook suspension last summer, and I never thought I would because
It was a what?
A hook suspension, like a
with your backs.
A flesh hooks.
Oh, yeah.
I still have the little scars somewhere.
Oh yeah, so you do.
But yeah, right there.
I think like the cell.
Yeah, so I don't like pain, and I don't really bottom at all. I don't like receiving pain. I like causing pain, but not
But you had
receiving
hooks
it.
in your skin.
I also don't like needles. I'm afraid of them.
So
I never thought.
What do you call
I never thought I would do the thing.
The healing with pins. What do you call that?
Acupuncture.
Acupuncture. Have you ever done that?
I have done acupuncture, and so I'm afraid of needles because I have teeny tiny veins. So my whole childhood and my whole life growing up, every time I needed an injection into a vein or blood drawn, they would stab me 5 or 6 times and bruise me horribly, and it was just a traumatic experience every single time. So I've developed a fear of needles, and yet somehow I did a hook suspension, but I prepared.
And you were a slight thing. Like I would imagine, you're a petite individual. I would imagine hook suspension. Does it go through muscle, or is it intended to go around muscle? Like I don't understand how the anatomy works. How does it?
I think it's just skin.
It's just your skin.
But your skin is thicker than you think it is.
I always think that's just gonna,
but it's
gonna pop off.
So when they're prepping you, they have medical expertise, and they sort of pinch spots on your back, and they sort of find the best spots, almost as if you were a kitten. They pick you up by the scruff.
The nape.
They find the best scruff to pick you up from, and they pinch you and find the best area of your skin to do so. Okay. And then from when they find the best spot, they mark it, and that's where they pierce the hooks through.
How long does all this take?
I honestly don't have a scheme of time for how long that was, but
I mean, the prep time of BDSM in general is a lot.
It really depends.
You gotta have patience.
It really depends what you're doing, but I prepared for several days.
Okay.
Where I drank a lot of water.
To elasticize?
To also just be hydrated and not pass out. I made sure that the day of, I ate a good meal, not so close to it that I would get sick, but not so far away from it that I would get nauseous and hungry again. I was very careful. I drank no alcohol. I was very careful to make sure that my body was in a good place. And I think that sort of prepared me mentally as well while
You,
doing
you,
this.
you gamed like you were training for a marathon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So then when I did the thing, I had a lot of friends, I had a lot of support, and
So to speak.
so to speak, I had a lot of friends, and I think the thing that's the scariest is right before you get off the ground, right? So they put in the piercings, and then they give you a minute to sort of stretch and flex your shoulders and get used to it. And then they put the rope, whatever it is, they attach that.
Just all sterilized and all.
Yeah. And they start adding some tension. And they let you can kind of walk back and forth a little bit as they're adding tension to it. And then eventually you hit a point as they've been adding tension, it's increased sensation, increased sensation, and increased sensation. And you get to the point that you're on your tippy toes and there is nowhere to go but in the air. And you feel like it's so intense that if you are off the ground, it's going to be so much more intense that you're not going to be able to handle it. And if there's any point that fear is going to kick in, it's there. But the moment you're off the ground, you get this second kick of endorphins, and pain is not an important part of the experience anymore. And it's the greatest high I've ever felt.
How far off the floor did you get?
I mean, pretty high.
Pretty high.
I was swinging around. I was
You're acrobating.
I was dancing. I was up in the air for maybe 15 minutes.
So it was you felt secure. You felt safe.
No, I wasn't. Nothing was going to rip and drop me.
That's just the thing.
It was solid.
I guess I don't trust. Like I just have this
people,
vision
I've
of
seen
skin
people bigger
being
than
that.
you go up.
No, and I mean, again, even like I know it's The Cell, so it's a horror movie, but like he's like a big bulky guy. Like the idea that he would be able to be suspended, like I just don't imagine skin having. I always forget how amazing our bodies are because I always imagine how fragile they are. And I don't know why I was raised or how I was raised to make myself think that I wasn't as durable as I am. I mean, I bruise pretty substantially.
Same.
I know it's. I mean, and I wake up with bruises, and I'm like.
I think that comes
don't
from
even
being
know.
a pasty white person too.
This is true. I'm basically clear. But I don't know if. I mean, it's for a lot of people. It would be like meditation, or it would be just like relaxation or calming down. Or if I would tense. And I know that it's like one of those things where like, oh, well, if you train yourself, you prepare yourself. And also don't do things that you know you shouldn't do.
Yeah.
Like, don't do, like, I'm good with that. I think I'm good with that. I would like to try acupuncture because I've heard that it's fulfilling.
I've tried acupuncture. It does work very well, and there is science behind why
Right.
it works.
It's not like a kink thing.
It's not just like chakras, and it's not only that. There is actual science behind the way they if they put a needle into a spot that's having pain, and it's stimulated through
I would
heat
love to do
and things that
yeah,
it causes increased blood flow, which we know, and causes increased healing or faster healing. So there is science behind it beyond that, but it literally does feel like a tiny pinch, like the way doctors, when they give you an injection, they're like, oh, it's just a pinch, and it's not a pinch. Acupuncture is actually just a pinch. So I was actually able to do that.
Also, depending on where you have it done, you can't see it happening.
Yeah, I mostly
Most people do it like on their back of their neck.
I mostly had it on my back, and I would try to show up tired so that I could nap through it. Otherwise, I would spend the whole hour of my session just being so conscious of the fact that I can't move, that would be the worst torment of it, more so than the needles themselves, but the idea that I shouldn't move.
How are you with like immobility? Like, is that a thing that you worry about? Like, there are people who get like fully bound, and there are people who get like wrapped.
I mean, I've done a lot of shibari for artistic purposes, or sometimes I've done shibari mostly going, okay, I have almost no pain tolerance, but I've done a lot of this. Let's see what I can do.
And for the audience,
out of pure
for the audience's benefit, that's rope.
Yes, yeah. So shibari is Japanese rope bondage. So it's, I would only trust someone who really knows what they're doing. Some people think, oh, I'm good with knots since Boy Scouts or what have you. I can do the thing. No, and I've had photographers approach me and go, oh, I think I could do the thing. And I'm like, are you a rigger?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I've seen castings where people have been like, so how much of this do you actually know?
Yeah.
Or do you just think it's just tying people up? Because it's not just tying people up.
Yeah, it's not just tying people up. It's knowing where the nerves are. It's knowing, I mean, I don't even know how far it goes because I don't do the thing to a large extent. I can do basic shibari. I can tie your wrists together. I can tie you spread eagle on a bed or tie you to furniture or something like that. I can do really basic positions or a basic chest harness or a hog tie, but I would never even consider trying to suspend someone without a lot of practice and a lot of training and classes from more experienced people, because the number of things that can go wrong is just so extreme, and you can cause permanent nerve damage very easily if you don't know what you're doing and you don't know how to check.
I mean, that's the thing. Our bodies are durable, but our bodies also are like, hey, we can only do so much.
So bizarrely fragile at the same time.
So, like, you can really, really bruise yourself, or you could really create nerve damage.
The key difference is as a rope bottom.
Yeah.
So if you're ever tied up, for all of you listeners, if you are ever tied up consensually, there is a big difference between numbness happening slowly, like if your hands start to go numb and they're just slowly tingling, you should bring that up to your top. But when it's a huge concern and it's not just, oh, let's make a mere adjustment, or they're fine for now, let's see if it gets any worse. If something goes numb quickly, that's when potential nerve damage can set in rapidly, and that's when it's like, okay, get these off right now, or fix this right now. Yeah. If it's just a little bit of tingling, sort of like, your arm falling asleep, that's actually fine, and that can go on for whatever period of time you're comfortable with. But if it's just suddenly like these 3 fingers went numb all of a sudden, that's something to be very concerned about.
Especially since they were working on your feet.
I don't know. They usually will bind hands. I found it's more effective to bind someone's hands when you're tying them up.
How familiar with the new scary legislation that we're...
So, unfortunately, quite... Can
you walk me a little through it? Because I have to be honest, it's a little heady for me.
Okay, it is dense, and I apologize if I misspeak at all. I haven't read all of the direct legislature itself, nor do I understand all legal jargon. So
that's part of the problem.
That is a serious part of the problem. So SESTA FOSTA is under the guise of being related to sex trafficking. but it is actually about sex work as a whole. So it's essentially putting the burden on individual companies. So for example, Facebook. All websites that are hosted in the US are now going to be held to this, including Facebook. So this is about trying to weed out sex trafficking, but it's making Facebook or whatever individually hosted website it is responsible if anything related to sex trafficking occurs on their website. And that includes your private messages. So if, for example, you and I have a conversation on Facebook Messenger, and it's under the guise of trafficking, but it includes any form of sex work. So if I say, like, hey, Victor, I'd like to hire you to do X, Y, and Z sex acts for me, because we're not both really gay and we don't do that with each other.
I like to consider myself an actor. I can put myself in this characterization if needed.
Okay, so characterization. So like, okay, and so I would like to hire you for X, Y, and Z sexual activities, and
sexual activity is a conundrum of a phrase, because that can mean a lot of things.
Yeah, so we don't entirely know what they're looking for in terms of that. Like, we don't know if that stops at, hey, Victor, I would like to hire you for intercourse, or hey, Victor, I would like to hire you to dress like a little girl and spank me while singing
Tomorrow
Happy
from
Birthday.
Annie. Okay.
Yeah.
We went in very different directions with that, but yes.
So we don't know what is considered a sex act or what is considered sex work under this. It's not explicit enough in the wording.
And
to
doesn't
really
it also
know.
It also sometimes can and of all places, Family Guy addressed this. It can make a difference if it's being filmed or something like that too.
Yes. So let's say we have this private message. Facebook, if it's ever proven that this correspondence occurred and was arranged through Facebook Messenger, Facebook would be held responsible and fined some ridiculous amount.
Because they somehow should have been able to stop it.
Exactly. So now Facebook has the burden put on them that they should make sure that none of that is happening.
Which leads to monitoring.
Which leads to monitoring all of our private messages as well as what we're publicly putting out on the internet. So Google has been doing this. Your emails are at risk. Anything you put into Google Drive.
This probably will have a big impact on FetLife, which is the...
Yes, it is unclear as to what is going to happen with FetLife. FetLife is essentially Facebook for kinky people.
Yeah.
It is very much a social media website for people to connect with each other and post photos.
With message boards and things like that.
There's message boards, there's
meetups, munches.
You can post events, you can like each other's pictures, you can send each other direct messages, you have a profile with an about me on it, and all sorts of things.
Just say, I'm into this. You can click on it and see everyone who is also into that.
Yeah, if you've chosen to list it on your profile, yes. Yeah.
So I wonder if that means like everything, what would happen if all of the servers that all of these sites were on suddenly went across the seas, if that would somehow solve the problem.
That's happening.
Okay.
That's already starting to happen.
Okay.
I don't know what the big companies are doing. I know that a lot of sex workers are getting websites hosted in other countries. I'm probably going to need to do the same thing at some point, especially the organization Conduit Enterprises is the organization at which I run kink events monthly through, and they're going to have to start.
This is how we met years and years and years ago.
Oh, yes, that's right. I think we had met at Wicked Fair before then, but you probably didn't remember me meeting me then.
Well, it was the first time we had like a substantial conversation.
Yeah.
And I think your hair was orange back then.
It was. I was going through my brief warm colors phase. I'm quite settled on blue, though.
Blue and little violets and
there's the cool colors,
lavender.
But predominantly blue.
Oh, yeah.
I'm very space at this point. But it does. Sesta Fosta concerns people who are not sex workers because this is going to affect them. This is going to invade their privacy.
Yeah.
This is going to reach all of the depths of the internet. But sex workers directly were affected instantly because a lot of the websites that they conduct their business through were shut down.
Right. Because a lot of those websites were, like, for example, Craigslist or something like that, weren't necessarily designed to use them in those methods, but sex workers find a way.
Yeah.
Sex work has always found a way.
I mean, though, there was trafficking going on them. For example, Backpage did have sex trafficking victims on there. But Backpage was also already working with, I believe, our government to suss that out. And you could see the difference. You really could see the difference if you went on a website like Backpage.
Is Backpage like FetLife? I'm not familiar as much.
No. FetLife is more of a social media platform.
Backpage is more of a...
like, have you ever seen Eros? Eros is still open. So you can go look at eros.com right now.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, you can go look it up right now, and you can basically look for escorts by zip code, by hair color, by activities they will and won't do, by rate. Like, you can put in your search parameters. It's like Amazon. It's like Amazon.
Right.
With like, okay, what are you looking for? Is it available on Prime? Like, check the box.
See, the future is now.
The future is now. So you can look up escorts that way.
Okay.
And I don't know if there are trafficking victims on Eros.com the way there were on Backpage or Craigslist, but Eros is a much more expensive platform, and they have a lot more money, which is why they're still standing.
Yeah. Which is so funny because was it 3 years ago? Like, Rent Boy was, which is New York based and is gay.
Yeah.
Or M for M in variation of what that ends up meaning. I don't think any of us necessarily thought that would then connect itself to the internet, but it really is connected.
Yeah.
And I had friends who lost jobs because of that, like admin jobs because of that.
Really?
Yeah. Well, because it takes a lot of people to. It does. It's American jobs, people. Like, that's the thing.
Once your photo is out there, it's out there.
Sorry, I didn't interrupt.
No, it's fair, but you could really see the difference between an ad for a sex trafficking victim versus an independent escort choosing to do this. Because an independent escort has photos of them that there's something more diverse about them, about the photos, and the descriptions were more about selling you an experience. Like, I'll greet you at the door with a smile, and let's explore this together, and let's share this time and this experience with one another as people. And it's still a pitch, they're still marketing themselves for something, but it's very much selling the experience.
Yeah.
When you looked at the sex trafficking victim pages, it would be a bunch of different girls shot maybe on the same background. Sometimes it would say 24 hours, and it looked like it was selling you a product, like a toaster. Like, it looked very much like an ad for an item.
Yeah.
Yes, for an item as opposed to an intimate experience. Yeah, and you could really see the difference. Yeah. So they already knew who they were, and Backpage was already working with others to try to suss that out and help these people.
Well, because it's not good for their business.
Yeah.
They want to make sure that, like, outside of, like, the morality issues as well, they don't want to,
Like, nobody wants sex trafficking to be a thing. There's nobody going, but the sex traffickers,
think of them.
Think of the sex traffickers, their poor business they've built. Like, no one, literally no one is saying that. But the law Sesta Fosta is not about that at all. Yeah. It's about censorship.
It's so general.
It's about censorship.
And it will trickle or deluge into other areas.
And there's a lot of people going, like, I've seen some horrible conversations online, like, never read the comments.
We always say that, but we do.
We always say that, but we do. Of like, oh, they should just get real jobs and blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry. What job satisfaction do you get in retail? When I quit my retail slave job, I remember I was quitting to work at this startup tech company that I didn't last at for very long either, but they were paying me so much more than this, like, basic bare minimum wage job in retail that I was miserable at.
Yeah.
And when I was quitting, they were saying, but why don't you stay here and work on weekends? Or you could work at the 5 a.m. store setup shift or whatever. And I was like, why would I do that? I'm making so much more money at the other thing. And they're like, but if the hours line up so you could do both. It's more money. And I remember the last thing I told him is I would rather suck dick for money than work here. And it's true. I have yet to do so, thankfully, because I abhor penis in my mouth or in any of my orifices. But so I've yet to have to do that.
Right.
But I would prefer it to going back to that retail job ever again. And so what sense of dignity do you get out of working retail? What sense of internal pride do you get at McDonald's?
Well, that's the thing also.
Fries?
We do the same thing as we demand a service, but don't give a fuck about the service provider. We want a 3 a.m. McDonald's, but we don't want to pay them a higher minimum wage.
Exactly.
And also, invariably, we will then say also, well, that's a starter job. That's a starter job. That's for kids going through college. That's when I'm like, who the fuck are you to decide that, 20-year-old white man on the internet? Like, why do you think you have some basis of understanding of what a quote-unquote real job is? And also, like, how many CEO positions do you think there are? Like, do you like let's be real, like, what counts to you as an adult job? And isn't it also about, I thought that a lot of what was pushed upon us as kids and as young adults was to do what we love and to do what we want and to find things that make us happy in our jobs. There are so many people, way more than the other side, who do jobs because they have to, not because it was their dream.
Yeah.
And even times, like, because dreams are dashed for any number of reasons.
And yet I also know escorts who choose to do what they're doing because they like it.
Absolutely.
Because they like
what
managing,
I mean by that is,
managing their own hours. They like setting their own rate.
So that's what I mean, though, is that we have so many people who then do jobs because they have to, they don't want to. We're now pinpointing a group of people who want to do this. You're telling people that they shouldn't want to do this. And that honestly, and I know it's a weird analogy, but if I work in the fast food industry because I want to work in the fast food industry, and it's none of your fucking business why I work in the fast food industry, I should get more money based on the fact that this is the cost of living, this is the service I'm providing, and I'm here at 3 a.m. And I'm burning and scalding myself on French fries that I'm giving to you.
Exactly.
And I could just do, and that's what I mean. And I hope that didn't come across that I was suggesting that sex workers, they're doing a job that they didn't want to do. Because best case scenario, everyone's happy in the job that they got.
And everybody has good days and bad days.
Absolutely.
Even if you enjoy your job.
Partially because of customers.
Yeah, exactly. Even if you enjoy your job, there's always going to be a day that's just shittier, or you weren't feeling well, so whatever you happen to be doing that day, which turns out to be work, isn't going to be a great day, and that's okay.
If you love retail, if you love working in retail, you know you're good at it, and folding sweaters is zen to you. Great. If you have a bad day, why did you have a bad day? Probably because somebody walked into that store and was an asshole.
Yeah, which is definitely...
What else could it be?
Definitely
What else could it be?
In the sex work industry. I definitely... just doing the less extreme but still sex work that I do, I definitely deal with assholes. Even when I'm doing the pro-dom party clowning, there are moments where I have an asshole for 7 minutes and I just go, oh, thank God that wasn't an hour-long session.
And that's actually a euphemism.
I mean, that's me working at McDonald's as a pro-dom, essentially.
Really?
Like, order up.
It is. And honestly, because those customers... or your session people, it's not really their responsibility to give a fuck about the person before or after them.
that makes me a good substantial chunk of my income is I do fetish videos, where
Like clips?
like clips for sale, things like that. And I work for a variety of producers that I network with, and I'm constantly meeting different producers to work for who have their own stores, who have their own things. And that is, we're not entirely sure how that's going to be affected by Sesta Fosta, because that also involves a camera. So therefore, is it porn instead?
Yeah.
Like, what is it? But it's...
Well, I'm sure. What is the just to quickly jump in, because I know that anyone who buys porn with a label on it, there's invariably documentation to explain who the models are, or that they're of age, or all of this. Do you have to do all of that even on a clip set?
And yeah, the producers do take usually photos of our IDs to prove that.
So you have a full back catalog of information to that people know that these people are.
Yeah, the website I believe takes all of that into account. So there's that. So I guess it's not as affected, but everything's affected. So I'm sure it's also affected. But in that scheme of things, that's definitely sex work, and we're making videos for people to masturbate to.
Sure.
Regardless of what the content is, the full purpose is for some guy to get off to it.
Yeah.
And yet, I don't have to deal with anybody except for the other models I'm working with and the producer. And half the time, we're having a good time. We're just laughing it off with each other, and we're joking between takes and things. And I find that usually a pretty healthy, chill environment to work in. So I get a lot of fulfillment out of that. I enjoy that. Yeah. And also, yet, clips... what is that? What is that job? It's not a real job. Right. It doesn't have health benefits. Right. It's, what is it?
Well, also, like, clips are the thing about fetish, or the thing about sexual interest, is that, I mean, it could be like legit hardcore thrusting or fisting or something like that, but it can also be like wiggling your toes.
I mean, I've gotten paid to do a lot of bizarre things.
I have a friend who at least at one point wore expensive bustiers and lingerie and just jiggled. Like, that was just a thing, and just twirled her hair and just sort of like primped herself on stage as like a, what do you call it, like a pillow princess sort of situation.
Or and like getting paid to like put on your lipstick for 20 minutes. And I get paid to pee very often nowadays, actually. So I will pee my pants, and sometimes I'm fully clothed, and I just hold my pee for a very long time, and then I talk about how full my bladder is, and then eventually I pee.
Now, is it more lucrative to give the presentation that you want to do that for their benefit, or is it more lucrative to act like it's an accident?
I mean, so I am genuinely holding urine
of
for
course.
as long as... So I do.
But like, is there like an acting, like, it will someone... Because people will get off also on it being an accident as well. As well as you wanting to do it, and that release and that feeling and all of that. But also like, oops, here's the... Oh, look what I did. I
mean, I think it's a little bit of a blend of both, because I'm almost always holding it for as long as I can.
Okay.
So it's not an accident that I pee eventually.
Right.
But I may have genuinely been trying to hold it for longer.
Okay.
So
right. So sort of like
it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. I guess I sort of wonder, like, how much, like, do you develop like a character while you're doing this, or...
I mean, it is definitely acting. It's not like,
it's
not
you
the
every
same.
day.
Also, I'm verbalizing it more than I would be in my day-to-day life. Like, if you're doing...
You're like, I gotta pee. Yeah, that's not hot.
Yeah, like I'm talking about, my bladder is so full and whatnot, and I'm talking the whole time to make it more engaging and to verbalize what I'm feeling. But I don't know, when you're having sex with a person, do you have to describe... Like, sometimes it can be hot. Sometimes it can be hot to describe,
like, tell me what I'm
doing
to,
Like, tell me what you want me to do. And, like, that can be really hot, but do you need it necessarily when you have a person before you who you are touching, that you are physically experiencing a variety of sensations of smelling their hair and feeling the sweat on their neck, and when you feel all of those things and you feel the physical stimulation of whatever sexual activity you may or may not be doing, or taste and all kinds of things, you may not need the verbal aspect as much as you would when it's just being conveyed through film.
Sure. Wow. It's a lot to consider.
I mean, that comes up in porn a lot. Like the blowjobs in porn that have like the gagging noises and the spit drops. I think most of that, not that no one genuinely enjoys that, but it's a little bit which came first, the chicken or the egg.
Yeah.
People
The
developed
sensory
people
aspect.
developed that for porn because people watching it and jerking off to it can't feel what's happening in the video.
Right.
So they added,
And the person doing it usually can't describe
so
it.
they added more visual aspects and the gagging and the sound.
Yeah.
They added more stimulation to the video so that the viewer is receiving more from it that they can try to relate to. And then people watch that when they're 13 and they think that that's what blowjobs are.
Yeah.
And then that's the kind of blowjobs they expect. So then they shove somebody's head down onto their dick as hard as they can because they want to get that gagging response. And
Not
then,
really taking into account their own anatomy.
Yeah.
Because of all the pleasure receptacles or what they would want. Like, there's a billion things that, like, listen to your local sex worker, people. Because they will help you out. And they will let you know, like, it's not actually, like, you probably will enjoy a lot more than just someone, like just skull fucking someone. Like, there's actually, like, subtlety that you may want to engage in.
You may enjoy. And if you enjoy skull fucking someone, which it can still be really hot,
Sure.
don't get me wrong, but usually the thing that's hot about it may be physical sensation, but it's coupled with the psychological aspects of the power of taking someone, of overwhelming someone with the size of your dick or what have you.
Right. There's more going on than, I mean, there should be. There's always should be more going on than just the physical.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're not, like...
I mean that's what we do with burlesque, right? It's tease.
See, all comes back.
The tease and denial. It's all the same thing.
Yeah, the delayed gratification of it all. Yeah.
Like, I think teasing is the best, and I think one of my favorite ways to receive enthusiastic consent from especially a new partner is to make them beg for things.
Yeah. Make them tell you how much they want and all that.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be negotiating before sex doesn't have to be this weird turn off of awkward conversation. Sometimes you can, tell me what you want me to do to you.
How much do you want this? Like, where do you want? But then we get into.
Do you deserve?
Yeah. This? Well, I mean, then we get into, and I don't want to get too much into this because we only have so much time left. But the worry. At this weird intersection of sex positivity and coercion. How do you so someone's listening to this and they aren't a pro-dom. In fact, they are more on the side of, I think I want to be with someone, but I don't want to feel forced. I don't want to feel hurt, and I don't want to feel like if I do something that I was 100% comfortable with, that it's not the end of the world, and that I just need, and that it's not my fault, and it's not necessarily their fault. It's more about communication and learning together. How do you make a sub or a bottom or a partner feel that they have permission to have to deserve, that they do deserve it, that they do.
I mean, I think a lot of that comes in the negotiation, and then you should, whenever you're doing something, especially if it's new, if it's not like, oh, just the sex that you have on Tuesday with the person you live with, but like when it's
you penciled in,
when you have multiple partners or you have new partners, or you're just doing something new with a partner, there should be a follow-up conversation. How did you feel about that?
Right.
What aspect did you like the most? What could have been better? If we were to do that again, what would you change?
Okay. Do you consider that part of like the aftercare aspect, or is that more of a
not
follow-up?
immediately. I think it's more follow up. So there's negotiation. I actually taught a class at Gemini Scorpio Loft not so long ago about negotiation specifically in pickup play, but in general. But there's the negotiation, which has many aspects, and I could go on about it for several hours, and I did do so. But then there's, after you do all the things, there's aftercare, which I think of aftercare as more of an immediacy thing, where I've just hit you with a bunch of stuff, right? And we've built up your endorphins, and you've been in this subspace of a high, essentially, feeling all of your feels. Right. And then when I stop, those endorphins tend to drop.
Right. You don't want to crash.
And then we refer to that as drop, and everything sort of crashes. And sometimes you can kind of feel, experience it in different ways. Different scenes, different sensations can cause different degrees
it's
of
like when your sweat suddenly gets cold. It's like that feeling of like
that. Or like you feel like jello. You
feel
like you're...
Yeah.
Like you're almost like you're shaking.
And your brain is just now coming back into, what have I just done?
Yeah. Or some people just start crying. Even if they enjoyed it the whole time, the first time I've seen people experience drop for the first time ever, and they've never experienced it before, and they just can't stop crying, and they're like, I don't want you to think I didn't like it. I don't want you to think that I didn't enjoy
crying
it.
It's a primal response.
Sometimes it's your body's response after experiencing it. It's like some people cry after sex because their body's been experiencing all of these things, and that's the way it copes afterwards. But aftercare is the immediacy of, okay, let's give you a cookie to raise your blood sugar. Let's get you some water to keep you hydrated.
Oh, a literal cookie. You actually mean
sometimes I mean literally a cookie, because this is a physical thing too. So sometimes blood sugar and hydration is a part of that. And then the emotional, okay, let's...
So that you don't go like into shock.
Let's wrap your favorite blanket around you, or cuddle you, or pet your hair, or sometimes the thing you might need is just space. You might need time by yourself.
Okay.
Everyone needs different things. But let's take care of the immediacy of right after we did the things and what your needs are. Follow-up I think of as, sometimes you can ask some follow-up questions during that time. If we're cuddling for half an hour after sex, I may ask you,
so what you think?
How are the things? How are you feeling about it? But follow-up can also take place days or a week later, and say, oh, hey, remember that time... that last weekend at the party where I ripped your nipples open and they bled everywhere? How are they doing? How are you doing? Was that too much? How are you feeling about our scene? And it's good to ask open-ended questions so that you're not projecting what you feel or what you think you may receive onto the person you're asking the questions to.
What do you do if you get a response that you didn't want? What if it wasn't okay?
Then it's even more important that we're talking about it.
Yeah.
Because I love hurting people who want to be hurt. I don't ever want to injure someone. I don't ever want to hurt someone who doesn't want to be hurt.
Yeah.
And if I do something that hurts someone in a way that they didn't enjoy or didn't want, or if, God forbid, I ever physically injured someone, I want to know.
Yeah.
If I don't know... Like, if you say something stupid, let's say I tease you about something you're sensitive about because I think, oh, Victor got a poor score on this test, like, oh, don't worry, you're still pretty even if you're dumb. And, like, I think that's something we can joke about.
But that can trigger something that maybe that happened.
Maybe you're actually really self-conscious that you did poorly on this test or whatever it was.
Or being thought of even as dumb.
Yeah. Or being thought of as dumb. And maybe I think that we're just jesting, but it bothers you. If you don't tell me eventually, like, hey, I'm actually a little sensitive about this. This does bother me. Could you not say that again? Or could you not tease me in this way anymore? I may say it again, maybe often and in public. And I don't want to do that to anyone. I don't want to keep putting my foot in my mouth repeatedly. I don't want to keep hurting people. I want to know, with whatever immediacy degree that they're able to articulate it to me, and if there is anything I can do to rectify it, and if I can't rectify it, at the very least, I never want to do it again to them or to anyone else.
I think a lot of times when it's a failure of communication, not just miscommunication, but just a failure to communicate, we inherently want to find blame either in ourselves or in the other person. We want to immediately say, well, that was your fault, or you should have known this, or I should have said that, or why didn't I do this, or why didn't you do that? And it's complicated.
I think it's important for everyone involved to identify where they as individuals could have done better.
And that can be session to session.
Like they could say, oh, I should have mentioned to you that I was on blood thinners before you started hitting me with the spiky thing. And I go, oh gods, I should have asked if you were on any relevant medications or if you had any previous injuries that might be relevant, because I do. When I'm negotiating with people, I ask them if there's any medical history that's relevant to what we're doing.
Any latex allergies.
Exactly. Any latex allergies, it's not just all about STI, STD testing. Sometimes it gets into things like blood
or is there anything I shouldn't call you? Because it will immediately make you think of, like, I don't know, your mom.
Some people,
or something like that.
Some people like...
Or would you like me to? Because it will make you think of your mom.
For example, some people really like being called a slut, but not a dumb slut.
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's this fabulous stand-up from Monique from the 90s where she was talking to, like, oh, I never thought I would like being called a bitch. Someone like, oh, you like that bitch, you like that bitch, oh, you like that fat bitch. And she's like, wait. Wait. We took a step.
Exactly. So, and I think all humiliation or degradation things are they're a type of edge play.
Yeah.
Because they are. So I consider edge play to be anything that is more potentially dangerous. And so you've heard of safe, sane, consensual.
Of course.
Most of the kink community is moving away from that into other acronyms like RAC, Risk Aware Consensual Kink. Because nothing is truly safe, is it? And sane is a really loaded word about mental health. But nothing's really safe. Walking across the street isn't safe. And what we're doing in BDSM is definitely not safe, but you can be as risk aware as possible. So I would say the riskier activities that you can still be aware of, you can still put in safety mechanisms and precautions for, but the riskier activities I consider edge play. And I think that a lot of the humiliation and degradation is psychological edge play, because you can accidentally cause some serious damage by calling someone the wrong thing
that neither of you could have even anticipated.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or that it might then, because I mean, to some people, sex is just like popcorn, and you don't remember necessarily which bag you had 20 days ago. But and that's cool. That's fine. Do what you want. Be safe and be considerate. That's actually my larger issue about it, is be considerate. That's, I think, my one of my major staples in sexual behavior, because that means a lot. Just be considerate. It's where I was going with that. That you are going in the file. If you have sex with someone, or if you have sexual behavior with someone, you're going in that person's file forever. And you don't necessarily need to worry about being the best ever or the greatest ever. But you certainly don't want to be in that don't ever click on this again file.
Yeah, you don't want the red tag.
Yeah.
You don't want the red label of the file.
But to be aware of that there are always going to be people who are going to put you in that file independent of you too. For whatever reason as well. And I guess...
I think that the best way to avoid that is negotiating as thoroughly as you reasonably can. Yeah. And I even if I can't have vanilla sex anymore. Because I don't understand vanilla hookup culture, where people just, like, go to a bathroom and fuck. Like, I don't know, and they don't talk about it, really. I don't get it. I don't know how to do that, because I need to know, okay, can I pull your hair? Can I choke you? Can I scratch your back? Can I do these things that someone might think, like, oh, you pulled my hair a little. That's a little kinky. Ooh, like, but they didn't have a conversation about it first. About
whether or not.
Whereas somebody might be really triggered by, even without pressure, someone putting a hand on my throat freaks me out a little bit. Like, it will. it doesn't trigger a panic attack. It doesn't mean that the whole situation has been ruined. But the moment that someone I'm having some passionate interaction with puts a hand on my throat, I start to become. It
goes somewhere.
It takes me out of the moment a little bit. I start to become aware of like, oh, their hand is on my throat, because the moment that pressure is applied, I do have a mild panic response because I've been choked in a non-consensual scenario. So that freaks me out. And there are a lot of things like hair pulling or whatnot that could be a trigger to someone that I'm not going to just around with. Right. Whether or not that's, to me, that usually feels like that's in my lexicon of just normal, passionate, we touch each other, we're doing things, you know, bodies intertwining stuff, like, oh, a hair pull here or a back scratch there. But for someone, that could really take them out of the moment, and I want to talk about all that first.
And again, there is a difference between not necessarily discussing that and learning it as you go and checking in and making sure everything's good and gravy, and someone intentionally pushing you because they want to elicit a response.
Yeah, the coercion.
And just in case it's unclear to anyone, that if anything happens to you that you did not want to happen, it is not your fault, and there are resources, there are places you can go.
I think everyone has experienced someone assaulting them either physically or emotionally.
Yeah.
Someone has done something to you that you didn't want, whether you articulated that clearly or not. If you just didn't articulate that you wanted it, they shouldn't have done it. Unless I say, yes, please, may I have another, then no one should just assume that it is okay to do something to you without your explicit consent.
So you say, yeah. And learn from each other, and yeah.
I shouldn't have to say, no, don't spank me, for like you spanking me to not be okay, because I didn't say yes. That makes it not okay. Right. At the very least, I like giving people the opportunity to say yes, even when
you already know.
Even when I already know. People walk into my little dungeon, and I know that they're there to receive a flogging or a spanking or something. It's understood the moment they walk in, but I still ask every single person who comes in, may I touch you? Right. Because at the very least, it gives them the opportunity to say yes.
Or, I need a minute. Or, can you do this first? Yeah. Absolutely. And that should be fun. That should be fun as well as considerate.
I think there's something really, really hot about, like, the moment that you take someone's underwear off and they arch their hips up to let you do so. Like, that's one of the hottest moments for me, is them
of course,
opening themselves to me.
I'm imagining this in a gay same-sex thing. So there's always like that boing.
Forgot about that. That's true.
Which can be fun too.
Oh, that's gonna be fun too.
Well, Vonka, thank you for spending some time and sharing a cup of tea on your bed in your red room of what is it? Your red room of pain. I absolutely would love to talk to you again about more stuff, because obviously there's a wealth of stuff we didn't get to.
Of course.
I never walk into a conversation with an agenda, but there were a bunch of things like, oh, we could talk about this, we could talk about this, and we didn't talk about any of it.
Oh, we didn't?
Well, not necessarily. Oh. I mean, I'm not saying that I didn't have like a list that I'm checking off. We'll check in. And we'll talk about what.
Yeah, and
what
I guess you can poll your listeners and see if there's anything in particular that they want to hear
I think that would be lovely. If anybody wants to send me anything, you can send it to WEBurlesque@gmail.com. Put something about the podcast in the subject line just so I know what it is, because I get a lot of emails.
Don't we all?
And is there any...
What the fuck am I doing with my life? Well, I can give you some ongoing information. So if you look up the name Vonka, I am very Googleable. That's Vonka, like vodka, but not quite.
It will be in the subject line.
Yeah, it'll be in the subject line. If you look me up, I'm very Googleable. If you decided to join something like FetLife.com, I am the name is just Vonka on my profile, and my profile gives all of the information of all the events that I'm attending. If you wanted to stalk me, good luck. If you wanted to stalk me, you can find me. But most of the events I attend are vetted, so you do have to know someone, or at least send the organizers a very genuine sounding email of why you would like to attend to be granted an admission. So I am a hostess of Conduit Enterprises, which is an organization that runs some munches, which are just friendly, social, casual gatherings where you can meet fellow kinksters in your local area. We also do some education, and we run at least one monthly party in Hoboken, New Jersey. And there are other organizations that I'm affiliated with or friends with that are listed on my profile in New York City and in Philly that run really fantastic events. So you can find all the information on there, but feel free to peruse through and see what events I may be running or involved with there. I also have just started teaching at Gemini Scorpio Loft in Brooklyn. In, I think, July, I have an upcoming fisting class, which is a little bit more advanced than my negotiation class that I taught last month.
It seems like it's very important to go through all of the steps. And I'm looking at your nails, and I'm already cringing a little.
I will explain exactly how to deal. Your nails can be as long and sharp and pointy as you want, and you can absolutely fist someone. But attend my class and find out how. And we'll also have a live, wonderful demo bottom, who is a very experienced fisting bottom and can actually offer their insight as to their side of things and their body and prepping and recovery and all kinds of things to ask them questions directly, and I will fist them before you if you are fortunate enough to be present at the time. So hopefully there'll be more classes from there on, but if you look up Gemini Scorpio Loft, their website will also detail all of the classes and events they have there.
Sweet. All right. Well, thank you so much. I have to say, one of the pleasures, I've known you obviously for, almost 15 years, almost 12 years. Really? Almost 12 years, yes, because White Elephant is 12 years old. Oh. And I've met you around the third, fourth year.
Okay.
So I've known you for about 10 years. And I think I had our most substantial conversations
at Cult of Fury.
At Cult of Fury, but only really recently through Fierce when we traveled together with Pittsburgh. We actually
spent enough time one-on-one.
We drove 6 hours?
Yeah, in a more intimate setting, getting to know each other. Yes.
And it's been really cool getting to know you, and
too.
I really appreciate it.
Me too. And I think what you're doing here is really cool. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of it.
Thank you for being a part of it and being so candid, and because there is a level of stigma and anticipated shyness about it. Like you're supposed to not you're supposed to have your shoulders up and you're
or I'm supposed to be like. Oh,
and her posture, I'll tell you right now,
I kind of thought that was hot when they were waterboarded, but I'm like, oh, they were waterboarded with their own blood, and I had feelings. Pants feels.
Well, thank you again. You are listening to WEBurlesque, the podcast. We are every Monday on your favorite podcast listening device of choice. Please rate, review, subscribe. And if you're feeling it, we have a Patreon at patreon.com/WeBurlesque. And you can throw us a couple bucks, which will help pay for my guests as I travel around the world learning about nightlife personalities.
Hopping into different beds.
So to speak. This might be the first bed one. So I'm glad you were my first.
I'm honored to be your first.